Hi, and welcome to my class on herbs and spices. Herbs and spices have been used throughout the world for millennia. We know from tradition that Abraham served the three angels that visited him in his tent a delicacy of calf's tongues in mustard sauce, mustard being an herb. So we have a very long tradition for using these vegetable items to enhance our meals, our dishes. Okay, why the need for flavoring? Well, there are a number of different reasons. The first is that it's interesting. It means variety, it's flavor. You can often tell where a dish comes from around the world, what cuisine it comes from, based on the flavor profile that the herbs and spices that you use in the dish give off. The second reason is that it was long ago when we did not have instant delivery and overnighting worldwide. Having spices, having access to spices was a symbol of wealth and prosperity. The richer the richer you were, the more you could afford to have the more exotic spices. And as you know, any student of history can tell you, wars were fought and discoveries were made based on the desire to have these flavorings, these spices. As you know, Columbus, when he set off and inadvertently discovered the New World, he was simply looking for a route to India in the Far East where he could get spices, and they would not have to combat the more aggressive purveyors of spices. And like I said, spices have had, wars have been fought over the spice trade. And a lesser known, still no less interesting reason why people use spices is because they're, up until recently, really, 100 or so years ago, there was no refrigeration. And when you had meat that did not have the benefit of refrigeration, sometimes the meat would get an off flavor or turn rancid. And spices, especially strong spices like pepper and hot pepper and things like that, were used to mask the flavor of meats that were going off or that were already spoiled. And people had no problem selling rancid meat. Okay, so herbs and spices, they're not really interchangeable terms. I don't use them as interchangeable terms. There is a distinction for me between herbs and spices. The distinction that I make is that an herb is typically from the leafy part of the plant, where a spice can be any other part besides the leaf. So you have seeds, berries, bark, pods, roots, things like that. Those are all spices, and the herbs would be the green parts, as it were. Okay, I'm referring to notes because there's a lot. Okay, so here's a fun fact. Most herbs are actually related to each other. They all come from the mint family, and that minty flavor is responsible is for the flavonoid responsible for that minty-ish flavor that is pervasive throughout the licorice flavor that is in mint and in basil and in anise and in fennel and loads of other things. It's called anethol, and it's found in lots of stuff. That's why it's, oddly enough, a very popular flavor and a very unpopular flavor. If you want to know what anethol tastes like, and if you're unfamiliar with what I'm saying, eat a black jelly bean. Black jelly beans, that licorice flavor, is the anethol flavor that I'm referring to. Okay, So anyway, so mint is the granddaddy of herbs and spices, and then within the plant kingdom, herbs are mostly cousins of one another, which is good because you know that the other things will poison you or kill you. So I like to avoid that. Okay, let's jump right into our herbs. Okay. So some things I have, some things I don't. Okay. So the first one I want to talk about is actually I don't have a sample. It froze in the refrigerator and I had to get rid of it. But I want to talk about basil. Basil is a very popular herb. It is popular throughout cuisines. It's popular in Middle Eastern cuisine. It's popular in Southeast Asian cuisine, in Italian, in Thailand. Like basil is everywhere. French cuisine has no problems with basil. It has that minty anise flavor to it. The stalks are they're long, fairly heavy stalks with broad leafy with broad leaves that taper off to the top. And actually, what chefs will do back in the 80s to 90s is they'll snap off the tip of the basil and they'll use that as the garnish because it's got the four-way pattern. Okay, whatever. Basil is found in, like I said, in cuisines all over the world. Basil itself, the flavor of fresh basil is very volatile, which means that if you cook it for a long time, the oils will evaporate and then you won't have that basil-y flavor anymore. So basil is usually added last to a dish, or very little processing. If you think about margarita pizza, it's just leaves of basil on it. No, nothing's crushed up. On the flip side of that, you have pesto or pistou in French. It doesn't have the cheese, where it's ground up fresh basil and pine nuts and oil and garlic. And if it's Italian, Parmesan cheese. Okay, so the next one we'll talk about is rosemary, and that I do have, fortunately, because I grow it in my backyard. So I was not able to grow this in America. It would die. It would just die. I could not get it to grow. Here in Israel, rosemary grows everywhere. It's a little pervasive in places. I think I happen to enjoy the flavor very much. So I'm going to hold up rosemary. Okay. All right. So fresh rosemary is much stronger than dried rosemary. I prefer it. Rosemary is found mostly in the Middle East. It's indigenous to this area. Especially Italy likes rosemary. That being said, you'll find it in other cuisines. Rosemary's flavor, and this is one of the difficulties that I kind of had to deal with when deciding to make this video. By the way, shout out to Joanna. This is your idea. Was that you weren't going to be, when I give this class in person, I have all these things and I pass them around and I encourage you to smell them and get the full sensory experience from each of these herbs and the spices, obviously. But giving an online class is a little bit more difficult. I'm resigned to having to just show it to you. So I'm doing my best. This is dried rosemary. You see, in comparison, it is much paler in color. It also gets a little bit more concentrated, so you're going to use less, and that's saying something because rosemary itself has very assertive, very woodsy, piney flavor. So you're going to use less of it. Less is more certainly when it comes to rosemary. Rosemary is very popular with very assertive flavor, so lamb is often paired with rosemary, an older lamb, or even mutton, and rosemary is found in bread, and it's a common topping for focaccia. There was a time where I was making gallons, like 5-gallon jugs of rosemary oil in the restaurant. So it's a very popular flavor. um, for those who find it a pleasant flavor. There are some people who do not find it a little overpowering, and I understand that. And we'll talk about that as we move on down my list. You know, it's always about what you like, not what it has to be. So yes, rosemary is a very assertive flavor, and it goes well with lamb and rosemary and lamb and rosemary and lamb. Okay, but there are other herbs, and you can use other herbs. I'm just saying, you're not tied in. You're not, beholden to rosemary and lamb. You can use it with beef. You can even use it with chicken. We like it with potato. We roast potatoes. Grab some rosemary from the garden. Take true Mamnasser, take tithes from it, and then strip it down, chop it up, sprinkle it on roast potatoes, a little bit of olive oil and salt in the oven. I sell it. I eat it. It's very popular, very simple, very easy. Okay. Oregano. Oregano is also very well known, very ubiquitous, and also very, I don't have a fresh version of it. So oregano leaves actually, well, okay, this isn't oregano, but this is a lot of what oregano looks like. This is actually a thyme leaf. You can tell the difference. Can I focus on that a little bit? No? Okay. So look, that's what fresh oregano leaves look like. They grow in clusters versus thyme, which I'll show you in another page. It's also very common in European and Mediterranean, Greek, Turkish, especially Greek. They have a thing for oregano. I actually had oregano growing in my yard. It died, but I don't have it anymore. So oregano's got a strong earthy flavor, and also kind of like basil, where the closer to the end you add it, the more assertive the flavor will be. So in marinara sauce, which oregano plays a major component, you add it rather early on. It doesn't have that greeny flavors that the flavor, the sweetness of the tomatoes and the garlic, if you use garlic and marinara sauce, will start to balance that, that powerful greens of the oregano. Okay, a lot of Italian dishes, Greeks they're wild about their wild oregano, interestingly enough. And Italians follow suit, but they're next door. So okay, so relative of the oregano plant is something called marjoram, 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 yeah. And marjoram kind of looks like oregano. It's not as assertive as oregano. It's very popular in sausage recipes because it gives more of a background flavor, and it doesn't. I don't know. When I'm working on sausages, it's always marjoram that comes up in recipes versus oregano. It's a little bit of a less powerful flavor. It's different from oregano in that I'm going to show you. This is marjoram. Okay, I don't know how well you can tell, but it's got like a little paler, a little whiter, we'll call it even silvery color, versus oregano, which is much more green, and even in the dried version, which I do have in my container labeled thyme, and I want to talk about it. Okay, so oregano is definitely greener. Let me see if I can do a side by side. Marjoram as a flavor, if you're using it as a flavor component, if you have fresh or if you're using dried, good in salad dressings also, by the way. It has a delicate flavor, much less assertive than oregano. So if you're going to use it, add it at the end. Okay, thyme. Let's talk about thyme. Thyme is my favorite. It's popular in European cuisines, popular in Arabian cuisines, popular in Caribbean cuisine, carried over to the New World. Thyme, and I have an actual plant. Okay, so you see how it's like reedy, kind of stringy stalks. Okay, that's when you looking for, after this video, when you're looking for oregano in the store, you'll notice that oregano is much more firmly packed. Anyway, so thyme has a very sharp, very resinous flavor. And that's especially true with the dried version of it. I find that the dried version of thyme is actually a little bit stronger, and it's all starting to kind of look the same, but it sure smells different. Okay, so these are the leaves from the dried thyme, which when I get a plant like that and it's starting to go, I'll cut it and you see the owls over there? So when I take a bunch of rosemary and I have some left over, I'll tie it up and I'll dry it and I'll stick it over there. Just to go back to basil for a half second. And again, these kind of all look the same on camera, but they all smell very different. Basil has a sweet flavor, kind of like a sweety sour flavor. Not a big fan of dried basil except for like salad dressing. Okay, so back to thyme. In Jamaican cuisine, thyme is a signature component of jerk seasoning. So thyme also doesn't have a problem taking backseat to other spices. You take thyme and other herbs and spices, and thyme will be there to complement the flavor and enhance it, interestingly enough. So really, thyme can hold its own with lamb. There, if you don't like rosemary, and you know who you are. You don't like rosemary, use thyme with lamb. Use thyme in stews. I do it all the time. Thyme, I like it in soups that I make. Thyme is very much a go-to flavor. I like to keep it. I like to have it fresh. Keep it on my windowsill and have it available. Have a fresh supply available. Okay, dill, which I don't have a fresh sample of either, apologize, but dill's kind of well known. Dill, instead of having broad flat leaves, dill has very thin, needly type leaves. It's mainly found in European cuisines. Dill is mentioned in the Talmud. So again, we've had this stuff for thousands of years. We're aware of it. Dill is one of the herbs that we use. Also, we use the herb part of it, and we actually use dill seed for other flavoring components, the sausages and whatnot. So dill is one of those we use more than one part of the plant. This is dry dill. We have a lot of it. I don't use any of it. I prefer the fresh dill to the dry dill. I think the dry dill has a little bit of a cardboardy, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I don't really like dry dill as much. I'll use it in a pinch, but I would prefer to either not make what I'm making or wait until the fresh dill comes. Okay, it has a fresh, bright flavor, would be the most accurate way to describe it. It's kind of hard to. Fresh dill has a bright flavor. Dry dill does not. It does not take a back seat. If there is dill in something, you will know it. You will be like, I know that flavor. It's dill. Dill pairs very well with fish. Very common with fish. Everyone makes salmon, so I make a dill and saffron mayonnaise to go with salmon, which is very nice. It's I don't use a lot of dill, more to like just show that there are flecks in it, but still, thankfully saffron is strong enough to hold its own. And of course, in cucumber salad, using dill in cucumber salad is like a thing. My mom actually likes using dill in potato salads, a German style potato salad. Okay. The next one I'm going to talk about is sage, and unfortunately I don't even have a dried sample of sage. I just happened to use it up in the last batch of sausages I made. So sage is Mediterranean, European, and I always think of it as like a Southwest American flavor. It's got a smoky, peppery flavor. There's an Italian dish called saltimbocca, jumps in the mouth is what whatever. Anyway, so you take dill, you take sage and you fry it, and then you wrap it in chicken and pastrami. Well, choose wrap in pastrami, otherwise prosciutto. But so sage figures prominently in that dish. Again, like I said, with marjoram, it's a very popular component of sausage meat. It's definitely pronounced flavor in breakfast type sausages. Like that's the if you do sausage making, you'll find that sage will figure prominently, especially in the fresh sausages versus the dried ones. Okay, parsley. Luckily, I have parsley, and the right parsley too. There are two types of parsley. There's flat leaf parsley and there's curly parsley, and I don't use curly parsley because it's a garnish. Just saying. But this is upside down. Ta-da, parsley. Okay. I want you to take careful note that the leaves grow out as a shoot in a cluster of 3 leaves. Okay. They're fairly spaced apart. Each node, fairly spaced apart. Okay, it's fresh leaf parsley. Had it over Passover. This video is being filmed shortly after Passover. For those of you who don't need potato. Okay. So parsley is more of an Eastern European than a Western European. It's also found in Asian cuisine. It's found in Middle Eastern cuisine, very popular in this area. So parsley, interestingly enough, does not have the anethol flavor. It has more of a what did I write? Fresh, bright, minty horseradish, and that flavonoid is called apiol. Just fun fact. I use it. I use it in a lot of different things. It's not just a garnish. Parsley, when I was growing up, was just a garnish. It's just a little bit of green on the plate. Now you can have all sorts of green things on the plate, and you don't need parsley to enhance it. In Italian, everybody knows pesto, right? With basil and whatever. There's another one called gremolata. Gremolata is parsley and garlic and lemon, and I think I might have a recipe for that. Okay, if you don't like mint, which some people don't like mint, you can make a tabbouleh salad, bulgur and vegetable salad, and you chop parsley in it. Works fine. It's great. Okay. Cilantro. We're going to talk about cilantro. It might be an uncomfortable conversation for some of us, but for those of us who are willing to take the time and not scroll ahead, I do appreciate it. Cilantro, also known as coriander in English, and I make a distinction and I'll explain it later. Okay, there is a strong argument about the flavor of cilantro. People don't like it. And people say it tastes like soap. And guess what? I used to think it tastes like soap. Okay, so I feel you, I know where you're coming from, and I'm here to testify that you can get over it. And once you get over it, you're giving yourself an opportunity to enjoy one of the more playful flavors of that are available to us. Okay. Cilantro is found in Southern European cuisine. It's found in North African cuisine, Southeast Asian cuisine, Central American cuisine. Cilantro is worldwide. Okay, it is available to lovers and haters throughout the world. Okay, it has a very bright flavor that, there are people who will absolutely and with 100% certainty say that the flavor of cilantro reminds them of soap. And I get it. And I'm saying is that once you eat enough of it, once you open your mind to it, once you are willing to experience it without prejudice, I don't know, I'm coming off saying it really mean, but I'm not. It has really, its flavor can be described more accurately as citrusy, and again, a very bright flavor. It enhances meat, enhances vegetables, enhances grains. It does a wonder for anybody who does enjoy cilantro. Okay, now cilantro, I'm just going to also, if you're using cilantro, don't add it at the beginning. Add it at the end as the dish is going to the table, or as a garnish. And if you have my cookbook, you'll see that in a number of things to add it as a garnish and then send it to the table. Okay, so cilantro is found in Mexican salsa, it's found in Indian chutney, it's found in salads. Okay. Um, the cilantro is one of those plants that we can use more than one of its bits, and we use what I call, so I choose to use the Spanish name for coriander leaf as cilantro to make the distinction between cilantro and coriander seed, which we will come up later. Now, I want to show you that the coriander leaf, see, it's got the ruffles on the ridges. They're very fancy looking. Okay. So parsley is much more pointed. Cilantro is much more rounded. Cilantro is much frillier on the edges. Parsley's got it, but not so much. Okay. Parsley is a darker color. Cilantro is a lighter color. I don't know if you can tell in the lighting, but okay. So that's the difference between cilantro and parsley as far as how they look. If you are shopping in Israel, parsley is petrozilia and cilantro is kuzbara. Okay. Okie doke. Right. Okay. Enough of cilantro and parsley, and those are going into a curry later. All right. Mint. Unfortunately, I don't have any mint to show you, but I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with it. Anybody that's chewed a stick of gum, had fresh tabbouleh, when it's made with mint. Okay. Okay, so mint is, like I said, it's like the grandfather of many different herbs and spices. They crossbreed and whatever. So there are about 25 varieties, a little more than 25 varieties of mint throughout the world. Very popular. It's very sharp, pungent, it's sweet, it's mild. It's described as having an icy sweet flavor. I agree with that. It is found here in our region. We have tea with nana, which is just basically, it's a clump of mint leaves and too much sugar put in a glass and enjoyed as a after meal drink. It's found in desserts. Mint chocolate chip ice cream. I mean, come on, guys, right? And there is a mint condiment. I'm not going to call it jelly. There's a mint condiment that is traditionally accompanies lamb. I don't get it. I prefer thyme or really rosemary. I don't like the idea, and whatever you're thinking, it's not that radioactive green stuff in a jar. It's much more subtle than that, but okay. So yeah, but mint is also found in toothpaste, and that is the primary association that we have with that flavor, which is unfortunate. Okay. I also have this growing in my backyard, and I picked it about 25 minutes ago. It's already going limp. That's how kind of got to get it. This is called lemon verbena. In Hebrew, it's called Louisa. Okay, my kids bought me a plant of it, and it's still going strong, still giving off leaves. This stuff is great. Okay, what you do is you just pick it and it'll grow back, and then take your tithes, your trim and maser, strip off the leaves, let them dry, and then you can make a not tea, because you need tea leaves, right? It's a tisane, but whatever. I'm not gonna. Okay, yes, I am. You can make a tisane from the dried lemon verbena leaves. I make a like a watermelon and lemon verbena slushy in the middle of the summer when everything is fresh and everything is delicious. So this is also growing in my backyard. So the rosemary is growing in my backyard. The lemon verbena is growing in my backyard. Okay, what else do I have growing in my backyard? I have lemongrass growing in my backyard. I have a lot of lemongrass growing in my backyard because I love lemongrass. I think it is the most amazing flavor. Oh, also, you might know it as citronella. That's right, keep bugs away. Okay, this is the stalk, so it's not really an herb, I guess, technically, because you don't really use the leafy part of it. You really want the bulbous part down here. That's the part that you're looking for. And by the way, I'm gonna take trim and masa from this. I'm gonna take tithes from it. I'm gonna put it in a plant in a in dirt, and it's gonna do the whole roots thing. And I'm gonna have another lemongrass plant. So also grown in my backyard. This is decidedly a Southeast Asian flavor. It is an essential flavor of Thai cuisine, and really, I love it. I think it's amazing. Okay, be a bay leaf. Okay, is an herb of a laurel, of a bay laurel. Don't like wild, because there is a poisonous variety out there. So just rely on what you get from your spice guy, and we'll talk about spice guy hopefully by the end of the video. Okay. So bay leaf, it's crushed up and used in sausages. It's used in soups. It's a background flavor. It's got that anethol, that licoricey flavor to it, but there's a little bit more to it. So hooray for bay leaf. Kaffir lime leaves. Okay, I just snapped it because they're dry, because I can only get them dry in this country. I'm holding them backwards. Okay, the kaffir lime leaf actually grows. So this is the stem and this is the tip. It actually grows this double, like I said, it just broke it as I was trying to open it because I'm stupid. It has this double leaf thing. And this is another essential ingredient in Southeast Asian flavors. Kaffir lime leaves gives like a citrusy flavor, but not quite. You're like, that's not lemon, not lime, not tangerine. What is that flavor? So, happen to love Southeast Asian cooking a lot, and so a good store of dried kaffir lime is, again, not as, once you dry herbs, once you are using dried herbs, you're kind of, the trade-off is that you're not going to have the brightness of the flavor, but you do have longevity, because the dried stuff can sit in your cabinet for 6 months, or well, it shouldn't sit there for more than 6 months, but it can sit there for 6 months or longer, and still be a potent enough flavor for your dishes. Okay, let's put this out in here. Okay. So we talked about all the fresh herbs, and I have nothing left to show you with respect to green leafy things.